friends, we continue to monitor the events on the front lines of Ukraine and Russia, as well as in news. As of today, the situation remains challenging. The Ukrainian armed forces are engaged in tactical battles, while Russian forces are attempting to hold their positions, resulting in counterattacks. But before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell icon to stay updated on all the latest news. Let's start with the Zaporizhia direction. Ukraine has currently suspended its counteroffensive, while the Russians are only conducting shelling. Additionally, the Ukrainian armed forces are also launching a significant number of attacks on the occupied territory, destroying Russian defensive lines. Yesterday evening, reports started emerging about a significant threat of an explosion at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Hopefully it's just a fake rumor, but if it turns out to be true, it's best to stay informed, so keep an eye on the news. Therefore, a critical topic today is the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Last week, the Russian government worked to restore Vladimir Putin's authority, which apparently suffered a blow after the recent Wagner Group rebellion. The aggressor country might detonate the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant to create a man-made catastrophe. Hungary continues to play into Russian hands. Ukraine has voiced what decisions from the NATO summit in Vilnius it would consider acceptable, while Russia aims to halt the supply of Western weapons to Ukraine. The NATO summit in Vilnius is scheduled for July 11th and 12th, and the main intrigue revolves around the decision regarding Ukraine. According to Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Yevgen Perebynos, the Vilnius summit can be considered successful if the allies take a decisive step from vague statements about Ukraine becoming a NATO member to a clear algorithm that shows how and when it will happen. At the same time, according to Deputy Head of the President's Office Igor Zhovko, Ukraine has formulated two specific expectations from the Vilnius summit: political decisions on initiating Ukraine's invitation to membership and obtaining security guarantees. The same situation is happening in the Vuhledar direction, where there is an exchange of artillery and drone fire, and it is intense. However, there is no information yet about new offensive actions by the armed forces of Ukraine in this direction. The Russians have also ceased their attempts to regain lost positions and are focused on defense. Over the past days, the front line remains unchanged, but Russian military correspondents report that the Ukrainian armed forces are still attempting attacks, albeit in small groups. It appears that heavy equipment and modern tanks haven't been engaged yet, so preparations for major breakthroughs are still underway. We have to wait for the moment when a large number of Ukrainian forces with their equipment will start pushing forward. During the night, Russian occupying forces launched another attack from the southeast direction using Iranian Shahed 1036/1031 strike drones. As a result of the air battle conducted by the Air Force in coordination with the air defense of other components of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, 13 attacks unmanned aerial vehicles were destroyed. The rest didn't achieve their objectives. Preliminary, no losses were reported. Meanwhile, photos of the destruction in Kushugum from a Russian missile strike with S-3000 missiles have appeared on the internet. The devastation is horrifying, and it reinforces our belief that Russia doesn't deserve forgiveness. There is also interesting information about the Kherson direction. It is reported that the Ukrainian forces currently control a significant coastal part of the left bank. The front line has shifted and battles are taking place near the Antonivka bridge. The Russians are attempting to push the Ukrainian armed forces back, and there is a high number of artillery shelling. In the Avdiivka direction, the situation is relatively stable, but the Russians continue to shell the area and periodically attempt to break through to the outskirts of Avdiivka. If we talk about minor tactical successes for the Ukrainian forces, there is some progress in the area of Pervomayske, where the Russians recently conducted offensive actions. This indicates that their offensive has turned into a successful counterattack by the Ukrainian armed forces. Further south in Marinka, fighting is ongoing, and it is evident that the Ukrainian forces are heavily shelling the positions of the Russians in the city. The front line remains unchanged over the past day. In the Bakhmut direction, the battles continue. According to recent reports, the Ukrainian armed forces are launching attacks in the Kushivka area. However, Ukraine was supposed to have broken through and liberated this settlement a long time ago. It wasn't successful because the Russians realized the significant danger and managed to transfer a large number of reserves to this direction. Therefore, the Ukrainian forces are currently not advancing and are shelling the Russian positions. The fights are of local significance, and there is no reports of a powerful counteroffensive by the Ukrainian forces yet. On the other hand, the Russians haven't stopped their attacks in the Bogdanivka direction. However, they haven't achieved any successes, and the Ukrainian forces repel all their attacks, so the front line remains unchanged. In the Siversk area, the Russians are only conducting shelling, and the situation has stabilized. Previous attacks on Bilogorivka were unsuccessful, and the situation is under control of the Ukrainian forces. In the Kremina area, the occupiers have significantly intensified and are launching attacks in two directions simultaneously. Shelling also continues near Dibrova and Nevsky, but the front line remains unchanged. Also today, a Russian drone hit a residential building in the center of Sumy. According to preliminary data, one person was killed. The exact number of injured and fatalities is being clarified, as reported by Stanislav Polyakov, the deputy mayor of Sumy. Moreover, analysts from the Institute of War Studies, based on data analysis from various sources, indicate that the defense forces carried out a counteroffensive on 6 fronts on July 2nd, achieving some successes in certain areas. Experts also remind that Russian forces conducted another series of missile strikes on southern Ukraine and Kiev on July 2nd. They also point out that the Russian Ministry of Defense is attempting to strengthen control over the Russian information space by undermining the reputation of individual Russian so-called military bloggers who didn't replicate the desired image of the Ukrainian forces' defeat on the left bank of the Kherson region July 1st, as desired by the Ministry of Defense. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky stated that the ultimate goal of Ukraine under his leadership is the deoccupation of Crimea, and only then will it mean that the war is over. Zelensky doesn't consider peace without Crimea as a victory. Responding to the question of whether there is any scenario in which there can be peace without Crimea, Zelensky said, then it will not be a victory. He also commented on the Wagner mercenaries coup attempt in Russia and stated that the reaction of Russian dictator was weak. That's all for me. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye!